Tilea's Troubles, Part 4. Everything Astiano has to offer. The walled town of Astiano, upon the Via Aurelia, beside the river Remo. Spring 2401. The Pavonans had been complaining about the tolls for some time, but the people of Astiano cared not a jot. It was their road, their stretch of river. They should be able to charge whatever they liked for passage. Yes, it was the Pavonans' best trade route to the north and west of Tilea, but the folk of Astiano could not help that. Just a matter of geography. Besides, the Pavonans were no doubt still able to make a profit from their trade. Now, however, the situation had taken a turn for the worse. The Pavonans had gone from angry words, complaints, petitions and paper battles to war. An army was approaching, with artillery and massed ranks of foot. It appeared very much that they were going to make a serious attempt at storming the walls, which meant the people of Astiano had to make a serious attempt at defending their town. The trouble was, there was not much time, certainly not time enough to hire more mercenaries, so it was they mustered everything they had and reviewed it, marching out to drill before the walls. 2 pieces of artillery were in working order, and powder and shot was found for both. The company of Condotta marksmen, armed with handguns, who had been guarding the gates, were the only professional soldiers they had, apart from the Condotta captain to whom the company belonged to. He would now command the entire garrison. Every caravan guard, bodyguard and bravi in the town was mustered into a regiment, proudly carrying the town's colours and armed with swords, while every other able-bodied man was pressed into service, whether they were servants, peasants or apprentices. A ramshackle lot they made, but surely able to defend a castle wall. The assault. Captain Bramante employed his spyglass to scrutinise the foe as they approached over the open ground before the town's northern walls, where the main gate was situated. When he saw that the foe meant to assault with artillery and ladders alone, he ordered every company onto the walls, except for the small company of brigands. They were to wait behind the wall until he could decide which tower they could be best employed in. As the Pavonan force, an army almost entirely liveried in blue and white, arrayed themselves in a neat line for the assault, one of the defending artillery sent a lucky shot, smashing into one of their cannons. Refusing to allow this unlucky start to the fight to dismay them, the Pavonan crew of the second great cannon fired at the gate, smashing it open with their first shot, a sight which made them instantly forget what had just happened to their other cannon. A cheer went through the lines, and the entire army marched forwards, handgunners and bowmen included. Having shouted orders to send the short-bow-armed brigands to the gate tower only moments before the gate was shattered, Captain Bramante now needed no spyglass to study the foe. "Steady, lads!" he shouted as the striped flag of Astiano fluttered beside him. "Let's see what else our own artillery and handguns can do to them before we worry about a broken gate." Several of the bravi nodded. If they needed to defend the gate, then they were ready to do so. It would be no easy thing for the enemy to burst through a defended tower. Just then, the foe delivered a second equally unexpected and cruel blow, for they had a wizard in their midst, who conjured a fireball and sent it washing over the wall to hit the bravi full on, singeing every one of them and killing 8. Bewildered as much as panicked, even the captain joined them as they ran screaming and smoking from the parapet. Once the initial shock had worn off, however, and they were down on the ground, they rallied. "That's it!" shouted the captain. "Looks like we will be defending the gate after all." Outside, every Pavonan could see the ruinous state of the gate. But only one regiment, a body of swordsmen led by several officers, including a fully armoured nobleman mounted upon a horse, was headed directly towards it. The rest were approaching the walls, carrying ladders as they marched. Needless to say, perhaps, it was the swordsmen who now received a hail of arrows, round shot and bullets. A good number fell as a consequence, but they did not run. Further from the walls, the Pavonans had dragged a volley gun up within range, the crew of which were now debating whether they should risk a shot or two in light of the fact that their bullets would likely have very little effect against a foe sheltered behind stone walls, and every shot risked disaster for a gun as dangerously unstable as theirs. They took a vote and decided 2-1 that they were here, so they might as well join in. Thus followed 4 volleys in a row until the barrels were glowing red and several component parts had shaken loose. Their efforts added considerable noise to the battle, a veritable thunderstorm of blasts, but failed to harm the foe at all. The crew, however, were happy. They were not only alive, but their engine had proved itself reliable. It was now the turn of the mercenary handgunners to receive the wizard's attention. As they loaded their pieces, glancing nervously over the crenellations at the approaching regiments, they could indeed see him clearly. He was the only man not garbed in blue and white. As they feared, he had a fireball for them too. 5 fell screaming from the parapet as the wooden bottles on their bandoliers exploded like grenadoes. The survivors, veterans of several years' service, were made of tougher stuff than the bravi, and went on loading, each one vowing to make the foe pay for the death of their comrades. While the Pavonan attackers sent a storm of bullets and arrows bouncing off the stone walls, Captain Bramante led his rallied bravi in good order towards the gate. Upon the other side, the mounted nobleman and the swordsmen, another nobleman and the wizard amongst them too, had reached the gate and set about storming it immediately. Further along the defences, the Pavonan halberdiers had also reached the wall, and as the assembled peasants, labourers and apprentices of the town hurled stones at them, they began laying their assault ladders against the battlements. Now the real fight began. The nobleman at the gate, none other than Lord Pulcario of Pavona, Duke Guidobaldo's eldest son, led his swordsmen between the splintered remnants to make mincemeat of the defending brigands. When they then burst through the inner gate, they were immediately met by the good captain and his colourful band of bravi. Meanwhile, as the handgunners on the wall beside the gate fought to the very last man against the halberdiers below them, everywhere else the town's defences crumbled. Captain Bramante was cut down by the young Lord Pulcario, after which his surviving bravi broke and fled down the main street of the town, rallying only long enough to look back at the walls and see that their cause was lost. The peasants were quickly driven from the walls. They too rallied, and, waving pitchforks and scythes in the air, even foolishly launched a charge against the halberdiers now upon their own walls. The Pavonans laughed as their heavy blades cut deep and deadly, and continued their merriment as they chased the peasants away for good. The town's walls and the main gate were taken. Every armed Astianon was running for the other gates, joined by much of the rest of the panicked populace. Astiano had fallen.